And just so we're not complete strangers, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dallas Knight. I'm the Vice President of Client Success and Channel here at Blue Light. I'm also a combat veteran and have an extensive background in intelligence analysis within the law enforcement realm. I primarily work narcotic investigations, but I dabbled with a little bit of everything else as well. So in case you're just coming to know Blue Light, who is Blue Light? I can sum our organization up in about 3 words. That is experience, being that our entire staff, just about our entire staff, is comprised of military veterans, law enforcement veterans, intelligence analysts, or a combination of all 3. We are cleared. We are federally cleared and able to work within the federal government, and we're innovative, which brings me to what is Blue Fusion. It is our innovated and patented technology, and summing Blue Fusion up, well, it's efficient. It's definitely going to streamline your workflow and create a much more efficient workspace. It's adaptable, being that we connect to multiple data sources and feed the intelligence repository, or intelligence platform of your choosing. And it's very flexible, so we can grow with you, and you will come to understand the various amazing capabilities of this technology in what I'm here to share with you today. With that said, today's session is, right now session, because I'm delivering 5 of these today, is on intelligence-led human and sex trafficking operations. I had the extreme privilege to leverage not only our internal solutions, but one of our business partners that you'll be hearing from today in a live operation that targets human and sex trafficking. Essentially, some analysts, investigators, detectives, current, retired, or former, get together and we spend 48 hours targeting and identifying person of interest and turning over those intelligence leads to law enforcement. So with that, our agenda is going to be discussing the importance of OSINT and with an introduction to tangles. And I have an amazing subject matter expert that I'm going to introduce shortly that's going to cover those for me. Then we're going to go over a solution overview, followed by a live demonstration, and talk about future integrations with our technology partners, and of course have a Q&A session. So just logistically, there are 2 ways to communicate with me today. First and foremost, there's the Q&A section of our Zoho platform. Zoom. Zoom platform. So please leverage that for any questions that you may have. That way we can keep track and ensure that we answer any that come up throughout the presentation. We will hold off on answering those questions till the end. And then there's our chat feature. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves, or if you just have any comments or feedback, we would love that in there. And then we're going to provide some information towards the end of the session in that chat section. So be on the lookout for that. So without further ado, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce Mr. John O'Hare. He is business development and sales for Cobwebs, but has an extensive and amazing successful background as a retired law enforcement officer, and he's also a military veteran. And I'll allow him to do himself even more justice, but I thoroughly enjoy working with him and Cobwebs, and thank you, sir, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Dallas. I appreciate it. I have to give a shout out to my analyst team. I see you here, Elizabeth Tiet. So actually, I'm going to demonstrate today some of our platforms. So our company's name is Cobwebs Technologies, and 2 pieces of what I'll show you today. One is our web intelligence platform known as Tangles, and the second piece is known as WebLock, which is a bit of MAID. So I'm trying to share my screen, Dallas, and it's telling me I'm disabled. I don't know what's going on.
Let me. Okay, try it now.
Okay, good to go. All right, let me find it. All right, so today I'm going to share a PowerPoint that a presentation that I want to give out. Here we go. There we go. There it is. So I have to shout out to Elizabeth, who's one of our analysts, Tiet's on here as well, who did this actually on her own initiative. So our platform is, we came out of the counterterrorism space, but what we realized is as we developed it for law enforcement and national security is that it has many applications from a methodology standpoint. One of which in the last year and some change, we've kind of dove headfirst into human trafficking. We're working with a number of NGOs on a donation type environment, and actually working with some other groups right now, specifically targeting this in the law enforcement world, because specifically targeting human trafficking in the sex trade around the world as a matter of fact. So we don't just stay local. In fact, I received another success story from a partner of ours overseas this morning of a recovery of 2 young children. So I love hearing these stories. We love that our technology can help. And I want to show you today a little piece of what we've done. But like I said, I can't take credit. We have an awesome analyst team at Cobwebs. Elizabeth and Tuyet are both here, as I've said a bunch of times. I got to keep shutting them out. But this is something that they developed on their own. And this is what we can do. So let me show you here. So it all starts with the Super Bowl 2021 down in Tampa. We actually engaged in the last one too over in California, working with one of our federal partners there. But we took a look at a case where there was actually a bunch of arrests. So this was not something that was preemptive here. We kind of reconstructed on the back end a case that was already had an arrest made. And you'll see here in a second here, I'll show you the screenshot of the individuals arrested and where it started. And Elizabeth actually took this and ran with it and kind of reverse engineered everything, because one of the ways that we use our system is not just, to preempt and interdict and do recoveries, but also to go backwards and acquire more evidence. So you have a stronger case on the back end, so you can really put these monsters where they belong. So I'm not going to read everything on the slide because nobody likes death by PowerPoint, but I just wanted to give you, this is kind of a breakdown of what you're going to see coming up here in this case right now. So here it starts with these names I can show because they've been arrested. This is public information. As we drift into the case a bit, I did do some redaction on some of the victims because they are victims, those that are trafficked, even if they were engaging in some of this activity with some of these parties. They're victims, so we covered them up. So the only names you're going to see here are those that were arrested. So right here in the middle, gentleman named Alvin Lynch Jr. arrested for all sorts of crimes, as you can read his little bio underneath his name there. I guess I'll call it his bio. Human trafficking for commercial sexual activity, et cetera, et cetera. This was all throughout the Super Bowl down in Tampa. So we're going to start with the web intelligence. And my favorite piece, which you all already know, social network analysis, which I used to do manually. Retired law enforcement, was a gang investigator, did some RICO, all sorts of old thumbtack and cardboard and picture type environments. But this is where we can really make a difference here. My favorite piece, and I'll throw a little anecdote in there about Dallas, about how we jumped on something quick during your endeavors. So here it is, looking for just a gentleman named Alvin Lynch. Simple search through our system, right? We go across multiple platforms, about 40, just to start, foreign and domestic, because we identify domestic, foreign platforms even here domestically, but we are a global company into 50 different countries right now. So Alvin Lynch, this is not the target that we saw in that initial picture, but the name matches and the location matches, and we had a bunch of accounts for him. So Elizabeth dove in and started kind of deconstructing his social network to see if he was related to our party. And lo and behold, one of the parties listed here, Alvin Lynch Jr., is just so happens to be that same gentleman you can see down there in the middle of the screen that was arrested. Goes by Tyler Lynch on social media. We all know nobody uses their real name anymore, if they ever did at all. Tyler, I believe, was his middle name, but he is known as Tyler all throughout his social media. So Elizabeth was able to go back and just do some manual stuff, right? I mean, this is something we can bring and ingest an entire platform and really kind of collate the media, so you can do some quick scrolling to identify target. So going through Tyler Lynch's profile, as you can see here on the left, this gentleman had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Facebook profiles, not to mention umpteen number of other profiles. Very typical of what we see in nefarious activity, criminal world, but he kept the same name on every platform, which is not so typical, right? So Elizabeth dove into his accounts because this is identified as target, visually matched facial. So we started deconstructing, pulling down every single one of his profiles. When I say pull down, we actually capture it. We call it analysis. We pull it down into our system. Actually, you pull it down into your system. This is user driven. And you've preserved that. So even if Tyler was to delete all these accounts tomorrow, you still have it and you can still work. And it's a dynamic platform where you can scroll and cross-reference and cross-analyze all these different social media platforms that he has, even if they're gone off the web. They're still in your cloud. So here's Tyler's, one of his pages. And top right there is a little bit of social network analysis. On the far right there, we plotted some of his connections around the globe. So if somebody leaves some information in one of their pages, as say, like you see in Tyler Lynch's profile, says Tampa, Florida, we actually grab that and plot that, and that's plotted on the map. But if somebody else, one of his friends that we bring in, even from a closed friends list, we're able to reconstruct that through connections we'll see where they are. So if you're doing global investigations, particularly HT transnational stuff, which we've done across the southern border, this is very important to understand origin or those connected all the way up the food chain here, all the way to target you're trying to investigate. So Tyler had friends all over. You can see some of his postings as we go into, this is just one of our tabs. We take his posts, anything with geolocation, we can plot it. If he mentions a location, we can plot it. If his friends are located somewhere, we can plot it. If he tags himself somewhere, if he checks in somewhere, it gets a different color pin. So it really gives you a robust kind of top-down view of a party's geolocation based on social media activity. And this will be important in a minute. I'll show you why. Other things we can do is we have the ability to create dictionaries, homegrown, so you create them yourself in Excel or even inside of our platform, and you can launch those out and you'll be alerted if that shows up anywhere in any of the profiles you're looking at, whether it be in a post as text, or even in this instance, pimp, one of our keywords, queen, a few others from our human trafficking dictionary we've kind of constructed. Pimp is actually visual OCR. So we also have the ability to go within photos and extract that. So pimp came up, that was an alert that came up to our system that the word pimp was found on one of his, one piece of information on his profile. And it was actually found inside of a picture. And you guys probably know this world pretty well, but you understand that this is kind of a manual on how to do what this gentleman was doing. So it's important. We do this with OCR too. We do this with object detection, albeit maybe it's a gun. You type in the word gun. It's not just looking for gun in text. It's looking for gun inside images as a word and also as an object. So if somebody's holding a firearm, it'll be alerted to that as well. So that's where AI becomes so important when doing these investigations. We can see here we have we reviewed the profile, and we see there was a couple of individuals that kept showing up on his profile. One individual by the name of Kelsey, Kelsey kept showing up, and we figured her to be a victim. Turns out through the investigation, we found out she was actually, she is a victim, but she was also facilitating some of these processes, but she was under the thumb of our party here, Mr. Tyler, which we can also see through facial recognition, which is another component we have. Once you've identified a face, it'll search across all those social media platforms that you've brought in to see if you can find that party. So really, really important when you're doing large data ingestion of multiple profiles. So here, Elizabeth took Tyler. He had multiple profiles. We collapsed them all into one. And then Kelsey, Tyler's wife, but also a victim in this entire scheme, and cross-referenced them to find all her accounts. He had 6, she had 4, all these multiple accounts together to see who are the common people in the middle that are associated to every single one of Tyler's 6 accounts, Kelsey's 4 accounts, and connected to both of them. And this is where we've done some methodology to uncover additional suspects and additional victims by knowing who's connected the strongest to these individuals. So this is something, this is my favorite piece in Dallas. I think this is something we did when you called me from Skull Games. This is a very powerful way to uncover more victims and more suspects. So cross-referencing, cross-platforming, kind of condensing, we call them unifying the accounts into one, and then crossing them with others to see who the core network is. This is great for RICO, but it's really great for human trafficking. So we had another individual that Elizabeth identified on this account. She kept seeing a picture of this party. Another victim we suspected based on some activity on her account, some of the emojis she was using, some of the words she was using. I mean, everyone's familiar with the terminology here with some of the things. The 813 was the area code, the plane she travels. There's a few others. I won't get into them, but they're pretty specific to HT, and we've been able to identify them. And we also have the ability to actually search by emoji and create emoji dictionaries, so we can be alerted if that emoji shows up, which is really powerful, particularly in human trafficking. So another party, just trying to identify her. So Elizabeth deep dove her. All we had was a handle. You can see no CA play was her handle, but we want to know who this party is because she may be in need of some assistance, some help. So going through the profiles, didn't get a lot. But what Elizabeth did was she was able to find an obituary that was posted in one of the accounts and then go through the obituary because we ingest that data and found different parties that were named. So now we can maybe reconstruct family, right? And from family SNA, we can get a real name. So there was one party by the name of Hawk Bledsoe. Elizabeth was able to go in and find Hawk's account, not a common name, so it made it kind of easy. We ingest that, bring that information in, and then run that against other accounts that we have and start to identify the strong familiar relationships just through our system. So we can actually extract these degrees. This was a massive SNA that actually 613 people that with 2 clicks of a mouse, we can whittle down into 6 strong familiars from a click standpoint, mathematically from a click complexity standpoint to see who she may be. So starting to uncover that, we start going through other profiles that are associated with Hawk Bledsoe and our victim, and we start identifying other targets in there through face and start to unravel who this person is. And we actually find out what her real name was, what she was using. This isn't her real name, but other names that we were using to identify who she is. So this was a great way to unmask another victim or potential victim. She puts it out there that she's working, but we all know how that is. Nobody chooses this business, and there's somebody behind the scenes. So Alvin Lynch was behind the scenes of this one as well. So just through some SNA, identifying those accounts with those fictitious names, we were able to pull up a mugshot that confirmed her legal name. So we knew who she was. Elizabeth took it from there, turned that over. So this is just an example of one of the cases that we do on a daily basis. And actually our partners do this using our system. But the real cool part is when you take the web intelligence and the social network analysis and all those locations that we've identified, and we do something called MAID. So it's signal interception, right? SIGINT, signals intelligence. It really does device analysis and device tracking. So let's go back to our party here, No Cap Play, right? She's posting where she is. And we do this a lot with like skip the games check-ins, right? If somebody's posting and they're using the same phone number in Tulsa and then Des Moines and then Austin, Texas on say a skip the games ad, we now have 3 locations for us to do what we call perimeter, multi-perimeter analysis. So we have a timestamp because we know when they posted it, or generally, we know what city they're in. So we do a perimeter around those locations. As you can see here, we did a perimeter around those check-ins that No Cap Play did. And we find devices that were in all those locations at the time of the posting. So that really drills down to who this party is or who's with them and carrying a cellular or mobile device. Now, there's no PII attached to this, as you can see where it says ID number on the left there. It's an alphanumeric string, but we can do some work on that alphanumeric string because now we have one device and we have multiple here actually. We target that were in several locations at the time No Cap Play was posting where she was. So we can start to drill down and figure out that's probably her device based on location data. You see her in Philadelphia, you see her in Westchester, you see her all over the place at the same time with 2 respective check-ins and locations. We can see where it's traveled once we've isolated a device. We've done this for recoveries. So once we've identified a suspected victim, we can start to isolate where they are and then turn that over to authorities, or actually they can do it themselves. And what's really important is you can see devices that were also with that device. Like I said, there's no PII attached to that device, but the fact that this one device was at every single location at the same time that No Cap Play was posting where she was, that's a really strong lead. And when you see these devices and you see where they went, and you can see them on the left there, Quality Inn, Red Roof Inn, Budget Suites, we know what that means, right? We've done this a lot. We see them in Orlando, Houston, Dallas, all over the country, but we also see other devices. And this graph here on the right shows other devices that may have been with that device at that time. And you can start to see if it travels in multiple locations with that target device, it's another device that you need to take a look at, and you can do association through that. One of the methods we like to do the most for association is kind of run that one device that we've isolated. Let's go back a year and see where it was between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. most of the time, because that's probably where they sleep, right? If you get that down to an address, you now have an address. And we all know with OSINT, with an address, you can start to find a lot. Just on truepeoplefastpeoplesearch.com, you can start to uncover who that is. So there's methodologies to all of this that apply and how you kind of uncover where they are. So here's one device. One was an Android, one was an Apple. They were at all these locations together, which tells us they have 44 overlapped hours in Orlando, right? 68 overlapped hours in Dallas. These aren't just ships in the night that are passing. These are the devices that are traveling together. So starting to unmask these devices is exactly what we do once we've isolated them. So we start with the web intelligence, we get locations, we identify who that party is, and then we take it over to the MAID side, the device analysis, to figure out where they are. And once you know that device ID, you can actually put that into what we call a monitor. And although it's not real time, it's not as fast as a phone ping, generally within 24 to 36 hours of lag time based on how this system works, you can figure out where they are, right? You may be a step behind, but eventually you're going to keep catching up, and you also develop what's known as a pattern of life. So as we see here, those two devices traveled together. And this is where we caught those two devices that Elizabeth identified, how they traveled all over the country. I mean, this is so indicative of human trafficking. And it's pretty incredible that you're able to do something like this. I love visuals. This is powerful enough to say they know each other, they're with each other, but it gets even better when you start to get local and granular. You can see the device on the left and the device on the right. Their patterns are identical. They're together, right? If you laid these on top of each other, which we have the ability to do, they're together. Same with the right. One was in Houston, one was in Dallas, but those are the same two devices on the left and the same two devices on the right traveling together. So you can get very granular. In fact, we can get down to the street view level because we utilize Google Maps. So you can really see where they are. And in fact, when you bring it down to street level, you'll see those little red pins exactly where they are. It could be on a house, on a building, on a business, anywhere. That helps you isolate and start to identify where you need to go to engage in recovery and also arrest of target. So I had to keep it short and sweet. I want to thank Dallas for letting me speak, and I know I speak fast. I apologize, but I know this was used in Dallas. Dallas kicked ass, so I'm just going to say it out there at Skill Games, and I was super happy that we were able to be a part of that, and she took our platform and ran with it. So shout out to Dallas, shout out to Tiet, and a big shout out to Elizabeth for this case. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you to the team. They've always been available for me to leverage at any hour of the day. And I will have to say that I received no formal training, although I always recommend training. I did not receive any formal training, and I was able to pick up the technology and run with it. So it's very intuitive. There's not a huge learning curve. And that's huge in this space, being that there's, a plethora of technologies that are being thrown at you every day. So thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so with that said, I'm going to run you through. I know John's got to run. He so graciously took a pause in his show that he's at, and I don't mean like he's putting on a show. He's at a conference this week, but he stepped out so that he could come and support us today, and I'm very appreciative of that. So if you have any follow-up questions for him, go ahead and plug those in the Q&A. I'll be sure to pass those along, or you can reach out to us. I'll put our contact information at the end, and we'll put you in contact. So actually, before I get into understanding the architecture of Blue Fusion, I wanted to discuss a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go this route. Sorry. So I want to talk about how Blue Fusion fits into the grand scheme of things. We discussed, at length, the Cobwebs technology, more specifically Tangles, and then even some of their other components under the umbrella, and it's amazing. I too also remember doing everything very manually, scraping Facebook and putting it into an Excel spreadsheet. It was very time consuming. So any tools that are going to help me streamline that workflow, I'm all for, especially ones that don't have a huge learning curve. So where does Blue Fusion Technologies fit into all of this? Well, I have had the privilege over the last 7 years of my time in the corporate space to understand an array of industries, use cases, everything from commercial, law enforcement, government, supply chains, executive security. Honestly, it doesn't matter. These 4 layers that you see on the left-hand side are typically almost always seen. And some of them we're proficient in, and some of them we have major challenges. And the one thing that we will always have an abundance of is that first layer, and that's that data source layer. So whether it's OSINT data, as you saw Cobwebs just, suck in and spit out so beautifully, or it's the multiple internal systems that you are leveraging, or a combination of all of the above, there's an abundance of information. I've asked analysts on average how many data sources they're tapping into with one bit of information. If I gave you one phone number, how many data sources, like what's your list look like? And they said on average 10 to 15. And then I asked how many minutes how much time do you spend in each data source? And it's anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And that's just logging in, querying, ingesting somehow that data, downloading, saving, whatever, printing, and then logging out. 5 to 10 minutes. Now you take all the information that you're consuming over all the course of a day, and then how much time are you actually putting into just querying, collecting, consolidating, and trying to get data to a point that you can actually conduct analysis investigation. So one, Cobwebs helps speed that up from an OSINT perspective. And two, we have to think about all the other data layers that we want to bring into that perspective. You know, we pass on these leads to law enforcement, and then it's up to them to incorporate all of the other law enforcement indices that they have access to. So that is really where Blue Fusion fits in. Blue Fusion fits in between that data source layer and whatever user interface that you want to leverage. For demonstration purposes today, I will be leveraging Analyst Notebook as my primary user interface. However, Blue Fusion is not only data agnostic, we are platform agnostic, meaning we will connect to any and all data sources that you are currently using or want to leverage in the future. And then we will feed the intelligence platform of your choice. If that's Analyst Notebook, amazing. If it's Multigo, whatever. With that said, Blue Fusion does stand on its own 2 feet. So if you simply have the requirement to query your data sources simultaneously, and then understand your results in a very quick and easy way, and that is all, then we can help you in that regard as well. So as I mentioned, Blue Fusion fits in between that data source layer, we feed that interface layer, and then we also can provide, if required, a storage layer where you can take that vetted information that you're collecting from all these various data sources and feed into that collaborative environment so that you and your team can leverage it today, tomorrow, or 5 years from now. Historical information is so valuable, and you can really streamline an investigation if you have the historical information to kind of start the foundation of your analysis. So I'm going backwards, forwards. I'm going to jump into some live demonstration. I anticipated obviously that John would show off the tangles, but I also wanted to show it from my perspective. And again, non-formal technology, training or anything, I was able to jump in. My favorite, I'm going to just share my favorite 2 things. My absolute favorite 2 things are the ability to summarize the analysis of an individual. This is the detective that I happen to work with in the HT space. So he had no issue with me exploring. I mean, this is all open source, right? So if you did some digging and spent a whole lot of time, you'd be able to go find all this information on your own. But seeing it in this format is the most amazing way to just summarize everything that your person of interest or your target, your victims, what have you, are doing within their social media platforms. And then as John discussed, I did call him one evening and was like, please help. I want to essentially take 7 separate profiles, and I want to see all the commonalities to identify other person of interest, to identify other potential victims. And with literally just a few clicks of a mouse, I was able to do that. So jumping over here, this is the analysis of 7 different profiles. There's a lot of data on here. And what's cool is I can take this and I can immediately push it into, through Blue Fusion into Analyst Notebook and look at it in that environment and continue to layer. You'll see that momentarily. But again, taking your degree of separation and drilling down to 5, 6, 7, you're going to start to understand a very key network within these organizations. They hang out together. I mean, everything that John shared just further validates that they are together, whether it's being able to track it through their social media posts, their ad IDs, they're going to have commonalities, they're going to have common friends, they're going to have common check-ins, they're going to have all of these things. So being able to drill out by 6 degrees and establish a network outside of the key individuals that you're already looking at is just going to broaden your horizons. So with that, Blue Fusion is integrated with Cobwebs. We have a lot of future aspects of that integration that we are exploring and moving forward with. So we have a push-pull of relationship with Cobwebs. So moving forward, we will be able to consume the information and move it into the intelligence platform of your choice. through a simultaneous query, or you can leverage cobwebs, tangles as your primary user interface. As we mentioned, we want to connect to data sources, all the various data sources that you have, and feed the intelligence platform of your choice. If this is the environment that you feel the most comfortable with and are leveraging, then let's feed this environment. So with that said, we'll be able to have essentially a Blue Fusion plugin within Tangles. You'll be able to leverage other sources that aren't necessarily OSINT, but that you do want to layer in with this data to fully understand the big picture of your investigation. And we're super excited about that integration. And I know I was actually supposed to talk about future integrations towards the end, but that's okay. I get very, if you can't tell, very, very excited about this stuff. So live demonstration. Next, I'm going to jump into my virtual environment. And I'm just going to talk about the solution that I'm going to be showing off here today. So again, I'm leveraging Analyst Notebook as my primary user interface, but it doesn't have to be that for you. We're very flexible in that matter. And then I am connected to multiple data sources within this database. So I'm going to show you my connector list. I have deep web, dark web, case management, records management, department motor vehicle. I have open source records through Hooster, and I have an intelligence platform through Echo Analytics group. So all of these different and various connectors I can have turned off, on, partial, and then as I am conducting my queries, it's going to simultaneously query this. We do not duplicate or replicate any data. What does that mean for you? Well, first and foremost, it's going to give you the most real-time access to your information because we're not moving anything. And secondly, it's going to afford you a lot more time, being that it's a federated query. We're going straight to the sources and we're providing a consolidated view of that information. So what does that look like? Well, let's jump into Blue Fusion. And of course, I didn't clean up my mess. I apologize. Anyway, when you jump into Blue Fusion, this is what it looks like. It's very simplistic. There's not a huge learning curve. It's very visual in nature so that anyone, no matter even the language that they speak, can very easily come in and start asking questions of their data. So there are two primary ways to query the data. You can do it through a visual query or a property search. And I'm going to show these to you in a little bit more detail momentarily. But before I do, I'm gonna run through essentially kind of 3 different approaches on how you might run down an investigation with human sex trafficking as the primary mission. Okay, so within the mission that I volunteer for with All Things Possible, we are typically starting out with phone numbers that were derived from escort ads. And we have the individuals of whom those phone numbers are associated to based on the information that they provide on the World Wide Web. With that said, it's up to us to be able to run with that information. So of course, I leverage Tangles to understand any social media profiles, and what I ended up doing was bringing in the relevant information into this environment. Now from here, I want to be able to leverage, again, historical information and other data sources that I have access to, whether they're internal law enforcement indices, other various OSINT tools, what have you. And so through Blue Fusion, once I'm connected to those data sources, it's very easy to explore these networks. So for example, if I wanted to just explore this phone and see what else I have on it, I can do an expand or a filtered expand. A filtered expand is going to allow me to pick and choose what I want brought forth. This is opting me for my paid subscription connectors on whether or not I want to run this query. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on and say, yep, you know what? I do want to hit booster as well simultaneously. Let's go. It's going to validate that account. And then it's going to ask essentially what entities I want brought forth. If I want all of them, I can just hit and expand. I can also do that through a straight expand, or I can be very selective on what entities I want brought forth. For example, if I have telephone records within my system or access to that database, I may want to turn off phones because there might be a plethora of telephone calls. Maybe I want to focus on other individuals that are tied to this phone or other key assets. And then, as I mentioned, if you just do a straight expand, it's going to essentially bring back anything and everything that this entity is connected to. But what's cool is I can actually go out a couple of degrees of separation. So again, this is a simultaneous query against all the data sources that I am connected to. And in this environment, I'm connected to, I think, 7. So again, I'm going to check with Hooster. Yep, let's run Hooster as well as one of those subscribe to data sources, as well as all of the other various data sources that I'm connected to. This is, again, hitting those live, querying them live, and then bringing back and immediately building out this network for me. So on this phone, it looks like I got some information from my case management system, records management system over here. And then tapping into a subscribe to open source records vendor, I was able to get some carrier information on my phone. So if I need to subpoena, it gives me dates, and this is just some Hooster information that is provided to me, as well as some subscriber information that Hooster has on file. This data is redacted, so it just shows up as a generic person. And then on the other side of things, as I mentioned, I have it looks like some historical information over here, some associates. And as you saw, I did go out 2 degrees of separation. So immediately I see a person that's connected to my phone, but I'm also going to see other key individuals that individual is connected to, as well as a criminal record. So that is one approach. And you can, of course, go down that rabbit hole and repeat this workflow and explore your connectors in that realm. So switching gears a little bit, kind of starting from scratch here. Let's say you have more of a question or like a red flag type of query that you want to run. So reaching back into Blue Fusion, I'm going to start with a visual query. This is my absolute favorite way to ask questions of multiple data sources, being that 1, it's very visual in nature, hence the name, but 2, it's super flexible and easy. You are essentially taking out your coloring crayon and drawing out your question. Anyone can do this. You don't need to know how to write code. You don't need to understand SQL queries. You just need to understand what entities you're interested in and the question that you want to ask. So for example, if I wanted to ask a question around a person and some phones in an organization, I would just drop those entities right in, establish the relationships, and then set any parameters or conditions that I want. So my question now reads, find me a person that's associated to an organization as well as a phone, and that phone is connected to another phone. If I had specifics around this data, then I may want to set conditions on the phone and establish that it's a communication link. And then maybe I'm looking for a specific date, time, duration, content of that information. Or maybe I have specifics around my individual, whether it's a descriptor, partial identifier, whatever data you have and you hope to exist in the data sources that you're leveraging, plug in here, hit search. One of 3 things is going to happen when you hit search. First, you're going to get results. You're going to be satisfied with those results. You're going to carry on your workflow. Second, you're going to get results, be dissatisfied with those results. And therefore, you have the full flexibility to come back down here and tweak your question. You might want to make it more vague. You might want to drill down and make it more specific. Either way, you have that option. Or 3, you're not going to get any results. And guess what? That happens too. Sometimes the data is not there, or it's not there just yet. With all of that in mind, we wanted to give you the ability to save this query so that you can come back and run it again, share it with your team if you turn off this private query, and you have the ability to hire a virtual analyst to work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and ask this question as often as you see fit. So for example, if I want this question ran again at the top of my hour, so be it. And then I establish out what interval. So do I want it run every hour? We can have it run as frequent as every hour or as infrequent as every 24th week. Set up your intervals as you see fit. Identify the users within the solution that will be notified. Say Marcos and I are working in tandem on a case together. And also we have the ability to send external notifications if that's a requirement. Maybe you aren't always in the solution as often as you may want to be notified of those results. Plug in your email, you'll get an email notifying you that you have results waiting for you. And then of course, loading and leveraging saved queries are available for you. You just select it from the list, load it up, and there you go. You can also make tweaks to this query if you see fit. So if Marcos designed this, but I want to change my phone number to a different number, just go in, plug in your number. So this is a place that you may start with your investigation, similar to what I started before. I have the number that was referenced in the Escort app, but I want to know if that phone number is listed or linked to any person. And then if that person comes back, show me if they have any criminal record and also any person associations. So again, you can put any parameter or conditions on this query. I'm going to go ahead and hit search. and it's going to ask me if I want to run Hooster. I'm going to opt not to. And then on the left-hand side, it summarizes all of the results for you, the entity, relationship types, as well as the quantity. And on the right-hand side, you get a nice little preview. Now I can go through and kind of interrogate this information, make sure that these are the results that I'm looking for. I can also look at the record. So when I look at the record, you'll notice there's a tab up top. I can look at, well, let's see, I think these are all manual entries for the purpose of this demonstration. However, if this individual was derived from multiple data sources, then you would see multiple tabs here at the top representative of each data source. If he came from 15 different data sources, you will see 15 tabs. The importance of that is because we want you to always understand exactly where your data is coming from. And if you need more information than what is provided here, you know where to go. Also, that's very important when you get to the point of the prosecution and the indictment phases. So as I mentioned, if you're satisfied with your results, then you're going to carry on your workflow. And in this environment, I want to see it visually. So I'm going to push it to my visual link analysis platform. I can see the phone that I'm of interest to me, and then I can see all of the individuals that are tied to the person that's also tied to that phone. Again, similar workflow. If I want to expand upon this network, I could easily just say, you know what, just show me everything. Let's expand. Let's go out, I don't know, 4 degrees of separation. Let's be crazy, and hit continue. Again, it is going to simultaneously hit my 7 data sources, boom, 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 bring back the most real-time information and build out my chart for me so that I can see it visually. If at any point here that I want to see where this information is coming from, a simple right click, show my records, and I will understand that not only the data sources, but all of the details that lives behind the scenes. So that it might be another way that you could approach an investigation leveraging the Blue Fusion technology and all of the connectors. Now, the next few capabilities kind of commingle with each other in leveraging our quick search, our property query, and our path search. So first and foremost, we have this quick search over here. If I'm just, in this environment and looking, and I'm like, wait, what do I have on Linda Drew? I can plug her name in, hit quick search. It goes and finds it for me. That was really quick, I think, because I kind of already had it loaded, but it goes and finds it for me. Again, you can look at this information in more detail, or you can opt to just send it to the chart. So I'm going to send Linda to the chart. And then the other way to query a more specified bit of information, such as a name, is through our property search. Just like our visual queries, they can also be saved, leveraged by the team, set up on reoccurring queries. Our clients love this for especially like license plate readers or phones. People names can absolutely be a part of this. And of course, we can leverage other people's efforts. So I'm going to do a person name query, load that up, plug my name in, hit search, get my results, send that to the chart. So those are 2 different ways to kind of query very key targeted information where you don't have more of like a complex question to ask. It's more of like, find me this person, find me this phone, find me this plate, what have you, and then bringing it in. But to allude to the third capability that I'm going to show off, which happens to be probably my favorite capability of Blue Fusion, is the ability to find a nexus between 2 entities very, very quickly. So have you ever asked the question, do these 2 people know each other? Is there a commonality here? And you just knew in your gut, deep down inside, that there was a nexus. I can't tell you how many hours, possibly days or even weeks, that I have spent throughout my career trying to prove or disprove a connection between 2 entities, whether that was 2 people, a phone and a vehicle, a house and another house, what have you, because of the abundance of data and all the different varying sources that you have to take into consideration. Now, with Blue Fusion being connected to these 7 data sources and essentially them being treated almost as if they're all in a data lake and being able to see all the non-obvious relationships across the board, I can identify the 2 entities of interest for me and then simply create a path search. I determine how many degrees of separation I'm willing to tolerate. So let's say 4 degrees, because obviously if there's 11 degrees of separation, that's not really a valid relationship and I'm not interested in it. So by 4 degrees of separation, show me if there's a path between these 2 individuals. And again, it takes all of the data that is within all of the data sources I'm connected to into consideration and then brings back that path of least resistance. So there's essentially two paths of least resistance, if you will, by the same degree. And so you can see now that the two targets that I started with are connected through various other associates. You could go up or down and all around. So again, showing off some of the capability and querying functions of the Blue Fusion technology. It's more so treated like a middleware, if you will. Think of it as a bridge to all of your data sources so that you don't have to duplicate or replicate that information. You can create federated queries, again, saving yourself a lot of time, creating a much more efficient workflow, and then feed those results of your queries to the intelligence platform of your choice. And I already talked about future integrations with cobwebs. We're super excited about that. And that kind of goes across the board with honestly any platform that you're leveraging. If you find yourself in a platform and you're comfortable there and you love working in there, but you would love if you could incorporate other data points into that environment, and they're willing to play and partner with us, then we have no problem. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of fluidity there. And with that, I'm going to actually pull up I'm gonna share my screen again and pull up PowerPoint because I have our connector library that I wanted to put up in front of you. Now, this is not our most current list. I feel like it grows every single day. But this is a pretty robust list of not only a lot of vendors that we're already partnered with, do business with, and have connectors built into their technology, or vice versa, we are built into their technology to leverage. But it gives you a good understanding of the diversity of data types that we're able to connect you to. So everything from, again, internal data, case management, records management, intelligence repositories to things that are external and/or subscribed to, whether that's OSINT or open source record vendors like TLO, LexisNexis, Clear, Hooster. You saw me leverage today very easily, any of those things. And then, of course, our friends Cobwebs, leveraging social media, OSINT, geospatial components, reporting alerts, anonymous reporting alerts, shots fired, and things of that nature. So quite a robust list here. And again, if you don't see it on the list, that doesn't mean that we can't make it happen. And then I should add that it takes us on average only 2 weeks to stand a connector up from the very beginning stages into implementation, which is great for both of us. One, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time creating and developing connectors, and two, that turns around and benefits you. Not only do you get a connector up and running very quickly, but it's going to be much more cost effective because we're not having to spend a ton of time. Therefore, we don't have to charge you for our time. So our solution as a whole is very cost effective. Again, and we can plug into whatever environment you're currently leveraging or grow with you in future endeavors.